Also in Newport, just a few blocks away, Wes and Scott Ledyard have used found items, art, and a unique fountain to construct a colorful extension of their home.
The garden right now I would describe as pleasantly busy. So there are a number of things, and one of my favorite parts is to come out here and discover something new that my wife had planted that I didn't realize was there.
We moved here in December of 2007, and so the spring of 2008 was my first garden.
Well, it was basically kind of just a recessed pit. A lot of the backyards in Newport were known to have outhouses, so the soil is very sandy. You can't just put water on it all day long, it just goes right through it.
I think we maximized our space by creating levels, taking advantage of the fence, using a lot of vines, raising flower pots up on, some kind of a stand or level, and then just adding a lot of decor along with the flowers and plants. I have done some paintings in the garden. I painted the cellar doors with the birds on them, kind of lovingly ripped off from Charlie Harper. The pluses and the minuses of planting in containers. I think you can have more levels when you plant in containers. You can actually have more variety when you plant in containers than in the ground. You can move them around if they need sunlight that they're not getting.
My favorite plant, I have to say, is one that I eat. So the herbs in the garden allow me to cook, which is one of my favorite pastimes, is to use them to make dinner, breakfast, you name it.
I use impatiens because they're so reliable. They never let me down. They will tolerate sun and shade. There's always flowers, and I love flowers. I love color.
The division of labor in the garden is pretty clear. If it involves hanging something, that was my job. So there are a number of items that are hung up on the walls, and I put them there with nails, screws, and whatnot.
The hardest part was confining my garden to a small space, but the easiest part was maintaining it. It's very manageable because of its size. I didn't really try to create a theme. A couple times when we've been on the garden walk, they would ask you, what is your theme? So one year I said it was birds, and hence we have a lot of bird houses and some rusty birds sitting around, but there's not really a theme anymore. Somebody gave me the idea of putting a watering can with ice cubes in it and hanging it on a crook or a tree. So that's what we call my poor man's water feature. One thing that we have that's unique in our garden is a fountain made out of a fire hydrant, and we give the credit to my husband Scott for installing that.
We have a water fountain that we made out of a fire hydrant. My son Corey and I were able to plumb it and pour concrete so that the concrete kind of looks like a city curb, and with an old grate that we had in the front of our house. Underneath it, we had to construct basically hidden wheelbarrow handles. So if we ever need to do any maintenance on it, we grab those handles and lift it up, and the whole thing will tilt up so we can get under there and fix it. The whole thing ended up weighing hundreds of pounds, and I got to pay a chiropractor for a couple of weeks thereafter to get my back in shape.
The things around here are just things I've picked up. They're for my own interest. The stained glass windows, we were on a bike ride in New Orleans, and it was shortly after the hurricane, so we call them our Katrina Windows. They've got lights behind them so we can light them up at night. The frames came from a secondhand shop. We hung them up and put the flower pots in the middle of them. Most of it is stuff we've collected, mostly from Goodwill or yard sales or just walking down the alley. To a novice gardener, I would probably say, just experiment. Read the tags on the plants so you don't make any, real big mistakes, but if you see something you like, try it. I think in Newport here, we're kind of in a little climate zone, and we can get away with some things that maybe you can't if you're on the top of a hill in Cincinnati.
look into a local garden club. For example, here in Newport, we have the East Row Garden Club, and there are people there that know way more than I do, and I encourage people to go to a club like that, and they'll learn a lot.
It's nice having a little garden in the backyard, someplace where you can go and get away from the urban situation, the buildings, the sidewalks. It kind of has a colonial feeling, like the old Spanish cities where everything from the street looks like buildings, but when you go in, there's like a beautiful little garden in the middle.
We have a weekly Wednesday night dinner with, we have 8 children, we have 9 grandchildren, and there's various other people, friends, and so on that come to visit us. So it's very nice to be able to have the garden area so that people can come out here and have a little bit of breathing room and just to kind of enjoy this small oasis-like feeling that we have in our garden.